After 23 years of being treated like the family failure, I sat in that Harvard hall ready to swallow another humiliation, until a woman I'd never seen pressed a folder into my hands. "They don't know who your real father is," she whispered. That moment flipped the script, sparked the fight I never saw coming, and the truth inside that folder made the entire future tremble. Before I tell you how that one sentence flipped my world and theirs, do me a small favor, hit subscribe and drop a comment saying where you're watching from so this story reaches people who love a real twist. I was 28 years old, and for as long as I could remember, I'd been the Rowe family's forgotten son. My brother, Alexander, shined like a polished trophy our parents displayed at every possible moment. I was the second son, the one who blended into the wallpaper at our Connecticut estate, the one introduced as our other boy, Julian, as if that explained why I existed at all. My mother, Belinda, lived for perfect lighting, perfect angles, perfect guests. Her life was charity galas and curated photos, all designed to keep her floating in the circles she worshipped. My father, Victor, ran Rowe Logistics, a $75 million shipping company he loved more than either of his children. His approval was currency. I never had much of it. Alexander, though? He had an unlimited line of credit. Growing up, our home was a shrine to him. The East Wing displayed his achievements from childhood onward, trophies, framed articles, photos shaking hands with politicians. The West Wing, where my room sat, was where forgotten things lived. I learned not to expect applause. I learned to keep my head down. And I learned that being invisible meant you heard everything no one intended you to hear. By the time I was old enough to join the family business, it became clear what role I was expected to play. I wasn't groomed to manage anything. I wasn't trained for leadership. Instead, I worked in the Newark warehouse, loading trucks, fixing forklifts, solving real problems with real people whose names my father never bothered to learn. I didn't hate the work, it made sense to me, but I hated knowing why I'd been placed there. It wasn't to learn. It was to keep me out of the way. The invitation to Alexander's graduation arrived in a thick envelope delivered like a court summons. I took the time off, put on the one suit I owned that still fit, and drove myself to Columbia. I parked my battered pickup between a row of luxury cars worth more than my annual salary. Inside the hall, chandeliers glowed across a crowd of wealthy families who all seemed to know exactly where they belonged. I found my seat in the back. Far back. My parents sat front row, glowing with a pride so bright you'd go blind staring at it too long. When Alexander crossed the stage, Belinda actually wiped a tear. Victor looked 10 years younger. And I sat there, hollowed out but pretending to clap at the right moments. Then came the reception. Crystal lights, champagne flutes, a room designed for announcements. And Victor, my father, stood to make the biggest one of all. He tapped his glass, silencing everyone. "Today," he said, "we celebrate not only Alexander's graduation, but the future of Rowe Logistics. My son will inherit the company, the properties, the collections, everything we have built." People cheered. Cameras flashed. Alexander shook hands and accepted praise like he was born to do it. I stood alone, a shadow in the back corner with a lukewarm glass of champagne that tasted like rust. I had known this was coming, but hearing it spoken aloud felt like a punch. I whispered to myself, "Nothing. I get nothing." And that's when she appeared. The crowd parted unintentionally as the woman walked straight toward me, mid-50s, silver-streaked hair pulled into a smooth twist, wearing a simple navy dress that didn't scream wealth yet somehow radiated authority. Her green eyes locked onto mine with unsettling precision. "You're Julian Rowe," she said, not asked. "Yes," I replied, the word catching. She placed a heavy manila folder into my hand. "Open it when you're alone." My stomach tightened. "Who are you?" "Someone who has waited 28 years to deliver this," she said. Then she leaned in, voice barely above a breath. "They don't know who your real father is." Before I could speak, she turned and disappeared into the crowd like smoke through fingers. The reception continued around me, music, laughter, the clink of glass, but I didn't hear any of it. All I could feel was the weight of the folder in my hands. It felt like holding a bomb someone had wrapped in cardboard. I walked out. Past the chandeliers, past the valet, into the parking lot where my truck sat dull and dented under bright lights. I climbed inside, closed the door, and flipped on the overhead light. My hands shook as I opened the folder. The first page nearly stopped my breath, a DNA test from 2001. The conclusion line read, "Probability of paternity between Victor Rowe and Julian Rowe, 0%. 0. Not low. Not uncertain. 0. The man who'd ignored me, belittled me, criticized me for 28 years wasn't even my father." My pulse hammered as I flipped to the next item, a photograph. My mother stood on a Miami beach, smiling in a way I had never seen in real life. Next to her was a man with my jawline, my eyes, my build, but older, worn by sun and responsibility. On the back, written in blue ink, Belinda and Mateo. Miami Beach. 2000. Mateo. That name meant nothing to me then, but it would soon define everything. I turned to the final document, a probate filing. Mateo Alvarez, owner of Alvarez Maritime Holdings in Miami, had died 3 months earlier. He had named a son, me, as his sole heir. His estate was valued at over $400 million. The truck felt smaller, my breath shorter. My phone buzzed nonstop, my mother, my father, my brother. But all I could see was that last line in the will, to my biological son, Julian, whom I was never allowed to meet. I sat there until the lights in the lot flickered. Then I made a choice that would set everything into motion. I started the truck and drove straight to the airport. And for the first time in my life, I wasn't running from them. I was running toward the truth they had buried. The flight to Miami felt unreal. Every time I closed my eyes, the folder flashed behind my eyelids, the DNA test, the photo of my mother with the man who looked like an older version of me, the will naming me heir to a fortune I never knew existed. I kept replaying the stranger's voice, "They don't know who your real father is." It echoed so loudly I could barely hear anything else. When the plane landed and the doors opened, the humid Miami air hit me like a wall. I stepped out of the airport feeling like a man who'd been rewritten in a single evening. My phone kept buzzing, but I ignored every call. I couldn't listen to their excuses, not yet, not after discovering my entire life had been built on orchestration and lies. I took a cab straight downtown. The moment we turned the corner and I saw the dark glass tower rising over the bay, my breath caught. Alvarez Maritime Holdings. 40 floors of steel and authority, a building that made my father's headquarters look like a side project. Ships moved across the water below like pieces on a board controlled by someone who understood how the world really worked. Someone who, apparently, had been my real father. I walked through the revolving doors into a lobby lined with marble so polished it reflected every step I took. 2 guards glanced at me, exchanged a knowing look, and one said, "He's here." As if my arrival had been expected. As if the world already knew what I had just learned. A woman approached from the bank of elevators, silver-streaked hair, emerald eyes, the same navy dress from the ceremony. She carried herself with an ease that came from years of being obeyed. She didn't smile, but her expression softened just enough to let me know she wasn't here to attack me. "I'm your aunt, Elena Alvarez," she said, extending a hand. Mateo was my brother. The room felt suddenly too bright. He knew? About me. "From the first year," she replied. "Your mother tried to hide you, but Mateo hired investigators. When your hair was cut as a toddler, he took a strand and ran his own test. She pressed the elevator button. He watched your life from a distance. Waited for the moment he could bring you home. Home. A word I'd never truly understood. The elevator climbed silently to the top floor, opening into a boardroom with floor-to-ceiling windows overlooking Biscayne Bay. Ships bearing the Alvarez insignia glided across shimmering water. Everything about the room felt intentional, sharp, powerful, meant for someone who controlled more than just money. "Sit," Elena said, motioning to a chair that felt too expensive for someone my family used to treat like spare furniture. She placed a new folder in front of me. "This will explain the scale of what you've inherited." I opened it and stared. Revenue statements, international contracts with governments, port permissions, subsidiary lists stretching across continents. Alvarez Maritime wasn't a company, it was an empire. A superpower in the shadows, quietly moving the world's goods while men like my supposed father bragged about small coastal fleets. "He built all this?" I whispered. "For you," she replied. "He wanted something real for you. Something they couldn't take away. Them. The Rose. The people who raised me like an obligation instead of a son." "How did he die?" I asked. "Pancreatic cancer," she said softly. "He fought hard, but it was too late by the time he found it. His one regret was not being able to tell you the truth himself." My chest tightened. I felt angry, cheated, grateful, and lost all at the same time. A man I'd never met had cared more about me than the one I'd spent my entire life trying to impress. Elena slid another envelope toward me. This was the last thing he left. Inside was a handwritten letter, strong strokes, confident, but shaky toward the end. "My son, you were kept from me, but never forgotten. I watched you work with integrity while others took shortcuts. You became strong despite their neglect, not because of their guidance. Everything I built is yours because you earned it without knowing you had anything to earn. Lead with the spine they never recognized. Welcome home." I swallowed hard, reading it again and again. No one had ever written to me like that. No one had ever believed in me without a reason to. Elena gave me a moment before placing a pen beside the folder. You can walk away with a simple inheritance, or you can become the rightful head of this company. You decide. I thought of Victor standing on that stage declaring my brother heir to everything. I thought of my mother's cold eyes, the way she smoothed Alexander's tie and barely acknowledged I existed. I thought of them calling me, the other son, all my life. I'll take the position, I said quietly. But the quiet was an illusion. Inside, something roared awake. Elena nodded. Then sign here. Your name goes above the title of CEO. My hand shook, not from fear but from a lifetime of being told I wasn't worthy. I wrote, Julian Alvarez. The ink felt like fire carving new truth into my skin. When I finished signing, Elena tapped another document behind it. There's more, she said. This concerns the Rowe family. I exhaled, bracing myself. What now? Elena pulled up a digital contract on the screen, a partnership agreement between Alvarez Maritime and Rowe Logistics. Pages of clauses, legal language, and financial obligations appeared. Then she zoomed into one line highlighted in red. Termination clause. All partnership contracts become void if Rowe Logistics is operated by a non-biological Rowe. At first, the meaning slipped past me. Then it slammed into place. Alexander. He wasn't Victor's biological son either. My jaw tightened. Then the moment he takes over. They lose everything, Elena finished for me. 60% of their international routes disappear. Their export partnerships vanish. Their company collapses within months. I sat back, stunned. It wasn't just that I'd inherited something, they were about to lose everything. Elena studied me carefully. Do you want to invoke the clause? So this was the moment. The moment years of neglect could be answered. The moment the forgotten son had the power to break the people who broke him. My pulse thudded in my ears. I want to see them first, I said. Look them in the eyes before anything happens. Elena nodded slowly. Then prepare yourself. They will come to you, begging. And deep down, I knew she was right. My phone vibrated again, 43 missed calls. They already knew something was wrong. They just didn't know how wrong it was about to get. I didn't have to wait long for the fallout. By sunrise the next morning, my phone was vibrating non-stop again, messages stacking so fast I couldn't even read them in time. Missed calls from my mother, from Victor, from numbers I didn't recognize. My brother sent a string of texts that started with confusion, turned into panic, and finally slipped into threats that sounded desperate rather than intimidating. But I ignored every message. Elena had arranged everything for me that day, new phone, security clearance for the building, a full team waiting for instructions from their new CEO. It was surreal walking into an office where people nodded with respect I had never known. Respect unconnected to my last name, or what school I'd attended, respect because I was the man in charge. For the first time in my life, I wasn't standing in someone's shadow. I spent the morning with legal teams, reviewing contracts I hadn't even known existed until yesterday. The deeper I went, the more I understood exactly how large and powerful the Alvarez empire really was. My father, Mateo, hadn't built a business, he'd built a fortress disguised as a shipping company. And I was now the one holding the keys. By noon, I took a break, stepping out onto the terrace that overlooked Biscayne Bay. Cargo ships glided across the water, sunlight glittering on steel hulls. For a moment, the world felt impossibly large and strangely quiet. Then I heard it, footsteps rushing behind me. Mr. Alvarez, my assistant said, breathless. They're here. I didn't need to ask who. Only 3 people in the world would storm the top floor of a corporation they had no connection to. I walked back into the office just as the door opened. There they were. My mother looked brittle, the kind of brittle that comes from years of carefully constructed lies finally showing their cracks. Her hair, normally styled to perfection, was pinned too tightly as if she'd done it herself. Victor's face was drained, eyes wild with something between fury and fear. And my brother, Alexander, stood behind them, colorless and stiff, looking like reality had grabbed him by the collar. For the first time, I didn't feel smaller in their presence. I felt nothing except clarity. Julian, my mother began, rushing toward me as if she could still command the situation the same way she commanded dinner parties. Sweetheart, we need to talk. Right now. I took a single step back. Don't call me that. She froze, stunned that I dared to draw a line. Victor stepped forward next. Son. I cut him off instantly. Don't call me that either. His mouth snapped shut. A lifetime of arrogance collapsed behind his eyes. Alexander didn't say anything. His gaze moved around the office, taking in the abstract art, the panoramic windows, the power radiating from every inch of the room. He wasn't stupid. He already understood what this place meant. He also understood what it meant for him. Mother clasped her hands together. Julian, please, this is all a misunderstanding. Really? I leaned against the edge of my desk. Then which part was misunderstood? The 28 years you hid my real father? The letter you wrote telling him I'd be raised as a row whether he liked it or not? Or the fact that you let Victor believe he was sterile from an accident while you slept with another man and hoped no one would find out? Her face fell apart. I did what I had to. No, I corrected. You did what benefited you. Victor's jaw clenched so tightly I heard a faint crack. He didn't look at me. He looked at her. Is it true? She didn't answer. And in that silence, everything she had built crumbled. Alexander finally spoke. So, Dad isn't? No, I said. Victor isn't my father. And he isn't yours either. Alexander staggered backward like I'd struck him. His breath caught. Then what does that make us? Lies, I said simply. Lies they raised to protect their social standing. My mother broke then. Her voice became frantic, trembling, the sound of a woman used to controlling every outcome suddenly watching the floor disappear beneath her feet. Julian, please, you have to help us. Victor is about to retire. The contracts, everything depends on you cooperating. If you cancel them, row logistics will fall apart. I didn't move. Why would that matter to me? Because you're a row, she shouted. I'm an Alvarez, I corrected, calm and deadly quiet. Victor finally found his voice. Julian, we made mistakes. But the business, your brother, your legacy. Legacy? I laughed once, humorless. I wasn't even supposed to inherit a used stapler from you people. That legacy was never meant for me. Alexander stepped forward again, this time more firmly. Julian, what are you going to do? Just ruin us? I studied him. For years, he'd accepted praise meant for him, privilege handed to him, opportunities delivered like breakfast. But he wasn't cruel, not intentionally. Just blind, the way people raised in luxury often are. You were lied to too, I said. But you benefited from those lies. I didn't. He swallowed hard. What do you want? There it was. The question everyone eventually asks the person they underestimated. I want the truth to matter, I said. For once. Mother reached for my arm. Julian, please, don't punish us like this. I stepped aside, and her hand fell into empty air. I'm not punishing you, I said. You did that to yourselves the moment you chose image over honesty. Victor's voice cracked. Then what happens now? I walked to the window, watching a massive Alvarez cargo ship cut through the bay like it owned the water. For the first time, I understood what power felt like, not the cheap imitation my family used to chase, but real power. The kind that comes with choice. I turned back to them. That depends, I said slowly. On whether you're capable of something you've never managed before. Mother blinked. What? Humility. Their faces tightened, unsure where this was going. I'm giving you one chance, I continued. One opportunity to salvage what's left of your company. But it won't come free. Alexander stepped closer. What do we have to do? Before I could answer, my office door opened again. My assistant whispered, Sir, your legal team is ready. Perfect timing. I looked at all three of them as the weight of the moment settled like dust after an explosion. What happened next would define not just their future, but mine. And they knew it. Their expressions were somewhere between hope and dread. Exactly where they deserved to be. I let them stand there, my mother trembling behind a mask she could no longer hold together, Victor trying to stand tall while his world collapsed beneath him, and Alexander caught in the crossfire of truths none of us could escape. For once, all their power, all their polish, all their carefully crafted social armor meant nothing. I finally spoke. You want a chance to save row logistics? Fine. But you're not getting it for free. Mother straightened slightly, her instincts kicking in. Whatever you want, Julian, money, a position, an apology. I cut her off. I don't want your apologies. They're worthless. And I don't want a job in your company. I already run one that dwarfs yours. Victor's nostrils flared, shame coloring his cheeks. He'd spent his whole life looking down on me. Now he couldn't even look me in the eyes. I turned to Alexander. The only way your family survives is if you learn what the business really is, not the sanitized boardroom version. The truth. The grunt work. The parts you've never even seen. He blinked, confused. What do you mean? You're going to the warehouse. Mother gasped. Absolutely not. My son. Your son, I said sharply, has lived his entire life insulated from reality. If he wants to inherit the company, he needs to earn it. The same way I earned everything without any of your help. Victor shook his head slowly. He's not built for that. Manual labor. Neither was I said. But you forced it on me anyway. Silence pressed into the room like humidity before a storm. Then Victor exhaled, defeated. What are the terms? 1 year, I said. Alexander works at your Newark warehouse for 12 full months. Clock in, clock out. No shortcuts. No hiding. No cushion titles. No executive privileges. Alexander's face drained. A year? Doing what? Loading trucks? Sorting cargo? Yes, I said. The same jobs I did while you were collecting awards for breathing. Mother stammered, Julian, he has delicate hands, I raised an eyebrow. Then he'll learn to strengthen them. Victor finally spoke again, voice gravelly. And if he completes this test? I renew your contracts, I said. Your company survives. You keep your legacy. You keep your wealth. Mother swallowed hard. And if he fails? I didn't soften my voice. Then the clause activates, and Row Logistics collapses. Simple. Her breath hitched like she'd been stabbed. Alexander looked between us. What if I try? Really try? And I can't do it? Then you'll learn, I said, exactly what it feels like to be left with nothing. He flinched at those words. For the first time, I saw something in his face that wasn't entitlement, it was fear. Real, human fear. But beneath it, there was something else. Determination, maybe. Or desperation. He nodded once, jaw tight. I'll do it. Mother's head snapped toward him. Alexander, no. He held up a hand. Mom. Stop. I need to do this. He turned to me. If this is what it takes, then fine. I'll earn it the way you did. It was the first time in my life he'd ever said something I respected. Victor cleared his throat. We agree to your conditions. I picked up the contract my legal team had prepared and slid it across the desk. Sign. Mother signed first, hands trembling. Victor followed, pressing the pen so hard the tip nearly broke. Alexander hesitated the longest, staring at the page like it was a blueprint of his future. Then he wrote his name. When the last signature dried, I took the paper back and folded it neatly. The deal was sealed. I rang the desk bell beside me. My assistant appeared immediately. Yes, sir? Escort Mr. Rowe to the private elevator, I said. Have security bring the vehicle around. He starts tomorrow at 6 a.m. sharp. Alexander nodded, expression tight but strangely resolute. As security let him out, my mother suddenly reached toward me. Julian, please. We raised you. You can't just turn your back on us completely. I held her gaze, unflinching. You raised me like a placeholder. Like a burden. Like a mistake you hoped no one would discover. But you know what? The only thing I'm turning my back on is the version of myself you taught me to be. Her lower lip trembled. I did what I thought was right for our family. I shook my head slowly. No. You did what was right for your reputation. Victor finally found enough backbone to speak. Julian, we want to make things right. You can't, I said. But you can honor the terms. They had nothing left to say. They walked out of my office like ghosts, lighter, smaller, broken in ways I didn't know people like them could break. The door shut, and silence washed through the room. But it wasn't satisfying. Not yet. Revenge never lands all at once. It unfolds, inches at a time, until the final blow settles in. And this was only the beginning. That evening, I returned to the penthouse Elena had arranged for me, a place with glass walls overlooking the city, quiet except for the distant hum of traffic. I stood at the window, watching the lights flicker across the skyline, and tried to unspool everything that had just happened. I should have felt triumphant. Powerful. Vindicated. Instead, I felt a strange ache in my chest. Not sadness, clarity. I had stepped out of their shadow, but stepping out meant I had to face myself too. Every part of me they had shaped, ignored, or tried to erase was still there, echoing. My real father had left me a kingdom. My false family had left me scars. And now both realities were colliding inside me. My phone buzzed. A text from Alexander. I'll be there tomorrow. Don't go easy on me. I stared at it for a long moment. Then typed, I won't. He responded almost instantly. Good. I didn't know what that meant yet, if he was preparing for battle, or growth, or collapse. But for the first time in our lives, we were about to stand on equal ground. The next morning, before sunrise, I drove to the Newark warehouse myself. The air smelled like diesel, cold concrete, and memories I'd spent years trying to swallow. I walked the aisles, listening to forklifts hum and metal rattle. This place had made me. And now it would remake him. I stood by the entrance as 6 a.m. approached, watching for headlights. Watching for the brother who had lived a life opposite mine. And when I finally saw his car pull in, dust curling behind its tires, a realization struck me. This wasn't just their lesson. It was mine too. About who I had become. And who I was about to be. If you felt every moment of my journey, show some support by liking the video. Drop a comment telling me how you'd handle a truth this big, and share it with someone who needs to hear it. And make sure to subscribe, there's more coming that you won't want to miss.